Brett Parker here, handicapped scratch. It's absolutely frozen solid outside, so I thought I'd do something inside, trying and still boost my knowledge, and rather than just taking a day off and ignoring the day, I thought I'd try and kind of look into some stats, look into specifically my game golf. Is there anything I can learn from my game golf? Am I using it to its maximum potential? So yeah, let's have a look. So I've already had a look at my game golf. I kind of keep a rough track of it already. So if we look here, strokes versus scratch. In all my rounds since I've had the game golf, I've only had the game golf this year. There's a glaring obvious problem here, which is short game. Putting's not as big of a problem as I thought. It's debatable. I think game golf putting stats, you can kind of take them or leave them. Obviously, it's dictating where you place the pin. So if you move the pin around, then you're estimating or tagging where your putt is. It's a little bit. I'd take it or leave it. Putting for me is not what game golf is good at. What game golf is good at is short game, approach, off the tee, things like that. The stats that you're really interested in. If I compare myself to a 5 handicapper, which I'm there or thereabouts at the minute, I'm currently 6, but 5-6. Better off the tee by quite a bit, better off the approach shots by quite a bit. Short game's a real problem, and then putting's not as bad as I expect. But again, it is one of those things that game golf perhaps weakness on. So smart tips. If you haven't got game golf, what game golf does is it basically works out what it thinks you should improve on in order to get your score better. So in this, it thinks short game, increase your accuracy less than 25 yards from the rough to lower your score by 1 stroke a round. So if you're unaware, these numbers essentially represent strokes I'm losing. So off the tee against a scratch player, I'm losing 0.6 of a shot. So if you look at short game, I'm losing 4 shots a round just from the short game, which is, that's not getting up and down 4 times in a round consistently, which isn't good enough, especially if I want to get to scratch. One thing I am interested in is 1.67 on the approach shot. The short game through the winter, it will sort itself out, and coming into summer, it will sort itself out. I have confidence in that. I've got advice from Dan to say not to focus on chipping at the minute. It's an area of the game currently in the winter where you can develop the yips, if I'm allowed to say that. Essentially, it's not a good time to practice. It's unpredictable. You try things that you shouldn't try. It's better to just practice them in the spring and summer as they go forward. Approach shots, they're something I should be working on at this time of year, so I'm most interested in that. Off the tee, half a shot per round. Can take it or leave it. It's something that as I get bigger and stronger and more accurate and being able to hit the ball as further, that will improve anyway. So chipping, short game is what it is. Putting, as I say, game golf stats for putting, I'm not the biggest fan of, so I'm going to kind of gloss over that. Approach shots. Work on your shots between 150 to 175 yards from the rough to lower your score by up to 0.32 shots per round. Now, that would take me down to about 1.3. However, that only specifically focuses on the 150 to 175. Now, I found something even bigger. Right, let's go to approaching the green. So, inside 100 yards, not terrible. 80% of them are going in within 15 yards, which is what game golf classes as good. 11% short, 6% long, 2% left, 2% right. Yeah, they're kind of what to expect. They're not as good as they should be for a scratch player, but they're about where I am now. Outside 100 yards, where things start to get interesting. As a blanket statement of outside 100 yards, 50% are inside that 15-yard marker, 32% come short. To give you an idea, that's 1 in 3 of my shots don't get within 15 yards of the pin, short-wise. Long, I'm only ever long 2% of the time. Now, what I attribute this to is a very common amateur problem. And it's a problem I have, and it's a problem I have to face up to, and I've spoken to Dan about. I don't hit it as far as I think I do. So let me explain that in a little bit more detail. If I've got 160 yards away, and I say, right, I could get my 7-iron out there once, this one time in Dan's lesson, I got it at 160 yards. But in reality, that's not the club I should be taking, because I cannot hit my 7-iron 160 over and over and over again. But what do I do on the course? I get my 7-iron out, I hit my 7-iron, I perhaps don't hit it as well as I should, and I end up 150 yards away. So I'm 10 yards now short of the pin. What this is saying is that 33% of the time I'm 15 yards short of the pin at least. So that's something I really need to work on. Now, if I look at trying to find exactly where this is coming from, if I look at 100 to 125 yards, 15% are short. Still not quite good enough, but it's better. I don't think that's necessarily the problem. 125 to 150, 18%. Again, 1 in 5. I can kind of live with that. This is where it gets interesting. 150 to 170 yards. 29% of the time, I'm short by 15 yards or more. 1 in 3, I'm 15 yards short. Which, in my head, when I think about it, is absolute madness. If I've got 165 yards to the pin, I'm only just getting it to 150. And that's at the best. That's right on the edge. What this is saying is you're getting it even further away. You're 145. You're 20 yards short of the pin. Again, if we go up to 175 to 200, 40% of the time I am short. Almost 1 in every other shot, I am short by 15 yards or more from shots that are 175 to 200. Now, that's just not good enough. Simply not good enough. If I'm looking to get the scratch, or if I'm even looking to get to Category 1 and stay in Category 1, 1 in 2 short at 175 to 200 isn't good enough. It's just quite simply not good enough. There's plenty of par 3s at Sandyway and other courses that I play that have plenty of par 3s that are in that yardage. For Sandyway, for example, the par 3 slightly down the hill, that can play between that yardage at times, depending on where the tee position is and where the pin position is. 11 can play the same at Sandyway. It can play up to 220. It can play down to like 170, 175. Again, that falls in that bracket. And then even 18 on Sandyway, it can kind of fall in that bracket depending on where the tee and the pin position is. So if we assume these stats are right, and let's go, which obviously they are because they've been tracking my game, 1 in 2 shots I come short. Now, if there's 3 already at Sandyway that are in that category pretty much all the time, I could potentially come short on 2 of them, or at least 1. That's not good enough, especially on a par 3, because then I'm relying on myself to get up and down, and we've already seen me getting up and down. That's not the best part of my game at the minute. So not only am I not getting up and down, I'm leaving myself in a position where I have to get up and down. So this is something I need to work on. I can't keep going short. I've spoken to Dan about it. Essentially, in the short term, the solution is to hit the ball harder. Or specifically, choose a bigger club and hit it further. I'm going to start trying to hit everything long and then try and kind of get a feel for where my yardages are, where my clubs are, what I can consistently hit, and just try and work it in there. Try and get that grouping a lot better. I'm going to do this over, say, 10 to 15, 20 rounds, and then do this again. So that could be April time, March, April, by the time I've got all 20 stats and rounds put into game golf. And then we'll have a look at this again. Has it gone the other way? Am I now long a lot of the time, or am I now just getting into that yardage? Now that I'm not thinking I can hit it further than I can, am I actually hitting it as far as I should be hitting it? So that's quite interesting. Let's have a look at off the tee. So specifically with my driver, other clubs I'm not as interested in. So 50% of the time I'm in the fairway. I've got an average of 256, 32% right, which I know that's my leak. If I try and hit it go at it too hard, I tend to leak it to the right. 18% of the left. In the earlier sessions with Dan, one of the tendencies I had after a few lessons with him was essentially to pull it. That's not really a miss of mine anymore. But on the course, I don't think my driver gets me into trouble. It's one of my most consistent clubs in the bag, essentially. I know I can get it up there around between 250 and 300 and consistently get it there and then just play from there. I very rarely put myself in too much trouble after tee. Let's have a look at 3-wood. So if you haven't seen, I replaced my 5-wood with my 3-wood for the sole purpose of hitting it off the tee, essentially to put myself in better positions and more consistently put myself in better positions. I don't want to necessarily hit my driver. Sometimes it goes out there too far. So a 3-wood kind of brings it back, but then also gets me a decent amount of distance. Average at 238, 50% again in the fairways, 17% right and 33% left. I'd probably say that's about right. A bit of an overdraw with my 3-woods, kind of the tendency that I have. Very rarely push it out to the right, and I'm fairly accurate with it, as you can see from the dots on the screen. What else have we got? That's scoring versus a pro. I think that's about it. Club performance isn't really massively relevant, although we'll quickly have a look at it, because this may show me more where my clubs should be sitting. So driver 266, obviously off the tee. It seemed to think that was 245, I think it was. So that's interesting. 240 with a 3-wood, 212 with my hybrid, 183 with my 4-iron, 173 with my 5-iron, 157 with my 6-iron, 153 with my 7-iron, 141 with the 8-iron, and 126 with the 9-iron. Now that's really interesting because in my head, if I give you an idea, pitching wedge would be 125, which it's 120. So I'm already adding 5 yards there. That's not a good start. 9-iron would be 135, which is 126. So that's 10 yards now added. 8-iron would be about 145. It's 141. So again, I've added another 4 yards. 7-iron would be about 155. I've added 2 yards. 6-iron would be about 165, which is 157. So I've added about 8 yards. 5-iron would be about 175, so I've added 2 yards, and 4-iron would be about 185 to 190, so I've added 3 to 10 yards. What's interesting is all of my irons, so my AP2s, every one of them, I think it goes further than it does. And here's my proof. I'm laughing about it now, but it's something I really shouldn't be laughing about. If I'm looking to get a scratch, this is crucial. I have to be nailing this on. I can't be thinking every time I step up with a pitching wedge, I can hit this 125, when my stats clearly say I can hit it 120. If you look at the amount of times I've used my pitching wedge, if we ignore the first few, because obviously I bump and run with it as well, I've got so many under 120 in that 100 to 120 marker. There's loads and loads, and only a few over that marker. That one's obviously an anomaly. I've only got a few that are more than the 120 that I hit it. Sorry, that was my 9-iron. Yeah, so pitching wedge. All these come in that 100 to 120 yard marker. There's absolutely loads in there. There's maybe 4 or 5 that get up to 130. Yeah, I think my pitching wedge definitely goes 125. If I'm on the course and there's 125 left, I'm pulling my pitching wedge out. But in reality, the stats say 126 is the average for my 9-iron. I should be hitting my 9-iron that distance. I'm a whole club out, it would appear. So it's definitely something I'm going to have to look at working on, look at just trying to hit that distance all the time. So I'm going to just be taking a club extra every time. I'm going to accept, look, this is going to go long. The only times I won't do it is when it's going to put me in danger. So if a pin's right at the back, it's say 125, I am going to take my pitching wedge. I'm not going to hit that 9. I know that 9 could potentially go the 130. It's 126. So I would hit my pitching wedge just for safety. If the pin's in the middle at the front, I'm going longer every time. Going up a club and just hitting it and learning, like finding out, right, what happens when I go up a club. Does it go the distance I've got? Does it go further? Or, what happens? I don't know. I'm yet to learn. One thing I am interested in, the gap between my 4-iron and hybrid, 182 to 212, so that's a 20-yard gap in there. There might be something in there that might need filling. And then the difference between the hybrid 3 up to the 3-wood is 240. Again, that's about a 30-yard difference. Now, obviously, the averages 3-wood are skewed slightly in the sense that they're hit off the tee. It's kind of interesting, though. Like, it's definitely something I need to look at going into the next summer. Do I need to address that? Is that a problem? Do I have many shots in that 180 to 200 yard mark? I'd say yeah. There's quite a few shots in there where I need to hit that distance. It's interesting. Anything else in here that would be worth looking at? So versus scratches like that, versus 5 handicap. Yeah, pretty good. Club performance we've already gone through. Off the tee, went through. Approaching, went through. Scoring's not that. If you've not followed me on Game Golf, check out the description down below. My links are in there. What did you think of this kind of video? Did you like it? Yeah, I've loved it because it's so blatantly obvious where I'm going wrong. I hit it further than I think I do. Do you think you suffer from this? Do you think you hit it as far as you think you do? It's interesting. Think about it in the next time you go out in a round. Do you end up coming short a lot? How often do you go long? I can never ever imagine going long. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to take this into my next round. I'm going to try and really apply it, put it into my next round, which should be in a couple of days. I'm going to try and take extra clubs, try and hit it further rather than shorter. Let me know if you like this video. Comment down below, and if you're not already, it's completely free to do so. Hit the subscribe button. I'll see you in the next video. Probably the best giveaway ever for golf. Wait till you see this. But before we do, I've just received a box. I wonder who it could be from.